Hey, this is Jo Feiner, agribusiness leader and consultant. If you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Dennis Giannoutsos.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsos.
Hey, welcome to the show, Leadership is Changing. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Leaders everywhere confront similar obstacles because people are people, but everywhere you go, leaders are overwhelmed, disrupted, and under pressure. They run from email to email, meeting to meeting. Many leaders are not changing quick enough, which means they run the risk of becoming irrelevant and being left behind. The purpose of the show is taking our listeners' leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. I believe we don't have enough effective leaders in the world today, and if we can get the leaders to step up and lead change, then they can inspire real change. It is time now to adapt in our fast-moving world. And today, listeners, I have a guest with me. Her name is Jo Feiner, and she is an experienced and well-known agri-business leader. Her experience spans operations, food safety, regulatory, stakeholder management, and primarily with an organisation called Fonterra. She is passionate about the role that New Zealand can play in producing quality nutrition for the world and has represented New Zealand at a number of international forums and on councils. She runs her own consulting business that is currently working with leading farming and nutrition companies to create new and innovative product solutions. I also understand that Jo has also spoken at the United Nations. So Jo, hey, welcome to the show today.
Hi, Dennis. Yeah, great to be with you today.
Great, thank you. Hey, Jo, I've done a brief introduction of you to our listeners. Can you just give us a little bit more about your background? And in particular, love to hear more about the United Nations and where you spoke there as well.
Yeah, that was a fantastic opportunity. Yes, I've had like a 30-year career in the primary sector and across agribusiness. Started off in quite kind of strategic, technical type roles, kind of leading the development of technical functions. And as I probably grew through my leadership journey, discovered that I really enjoyed just the people interaction piece, the people, whether that was developing my own team through coaching and mentoring, or whether that was actually building trusted relationships with others. And so over time of my career, I moved from those kind of technical and strategy type roles increasingly into stakeholder management, going out and building essentially the external relationships on behalf of the organisation I was with at the time. Gave me some fantastic opportunities. I sat on an international board, food safety board, vice president of that, which was great to interact with a lot of US and Europe food safety leaders. And more recently, as you indicated, I was invited to join the Minister for Women, Minister Genter, and the Human Rights Commissioner to head up to New York to the United Nations. And we spoke at the UN's Commission on the Status of Women, which is the UN's largest gathering on gender equality. And we talked about the economic empowerment of women in agriculture in New Zealand. And so I could share what New Zealand has done over the last, 10, 20 years in particular, where we've quite specifically gone out and helped to empower women to be equal business leaders in the primary sector. Whereas formerly, they were often viewed as just the farmer's wife. And we could actually talk about what we've done in New Zealand to, what various parts of the sector had done to really empower them. The banking sector had taken a really lead role there, actually, in understanding that a lot of the financial decision-making that occurs on farm is often undertaken by women, and had really, played that up and given them a lot of opportunity. So, that was an amazing opportunity to be there.
Yeah, amazing for you to be there, but also for you to share your wisdom and your experience and that. And, I love it what you share in the sense that, rather than just being known as the farmer's wife, you're actually out there in business with large organizations, having a role to play, which is very important in helping organizations go forward. And so well done in doing that, and for that recognition of actually being asked to speak there as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think probably a little piece around my leadership style kind of was reflected in how I prepared for that as well. As I said, I really do like to feel I can connect in with people and reflect the views of others. So in preparing to go up to the UN, I interviewed probably, 10 or so women leaders across the rural sector, and brought all their thoughts together, and some men as well, so that I could really be reflective of New Zealand's view, New Zealand's industry view on that economic empowerment of women. But my style there, I guess, is to go out to ask the questions, to listen, and to really kind of connect with people, and not just come off my own bat. So.
Yeah. So go out there and hear everyone's voice, and then go out there and share that voice, collective voice with others as well. That's great. And so you talked about connecting with people and engaging with your teams in the past and that. And so tell us a little bit more about, I think, well, here's the question for you. What do people want in leadership? What are they looking for from leaders today?
Look, I think every individual is looking for something different, and that's probably something that I've learnt over the years, that the need to be adaptive in that leadership style. Understanding whether, I recall at one point, two men I had working for me, one needed a 5-minute catch-up virtually every day, albeit just a 5-minute text, just needed that constant connection and understanding, and to support, to know that I was there, interested, happy to, break down any roadblocks that he discovered. Another, every 6 weeks, a 2-hour coffee, that's all the contact he wanted. And as long as I could empower him to go away and work autonomously for 6 weeks and then sit down and chew the fat 6 weeks later, then he loved operating that way. So just being able to understand where people are coming from is one thing. I guess the other one is really about kind of empowerment. That would be my view, is that everybody wants to feel really empowered, that they can do their best at work every day, that they can really kind of shine based on their strengths and capabilities. So giving them that chance to be empowered to make a difference, for millennials, being empowered to make impact. Impact really seems to be the thing. So those would probably be my two kind of key words, is being adaptive to an individual style, but also empowering.
Yep, cool. So being adaptive to individual styles, because everyone is different and everyone does need different things from us as leaders. And so that's important to actually, A, understand that, and B, put that in place. And then the other one is about the empowering side. I like that. I think that, if we can empower people, as you say, though, everyone is different. So the person only needed the 5-minute chat, but that was empowering them to get on with things, and someone else needed the 2-hour side of things and a good chat every 6 weeks, and empowering them as well. Whatever it is, if you can empower people, let them get out there and do what they need to do, it's amazing what they can achieve. So that'd be quite interesting to see for sure. Hey, Joe, the question I've got for you now is, who's your favourite leader? Now, this person could be alive or it can come from history. So who's your favourite leader and why?
I do have a favourite leader, a woman named Erin Brockovich. They made a movie about her, some years ago, maybe the early 2000s. And what I love about her leadership style was like the real passion that she had for her cause. It was a real kind of bottom-up leadership. She was an American legal clerk who came across an issue in her community, which was around some water contamination, which was leading to an increase in cancer rates in their society. And so she fought hard as a consumer advocate, as an environmental activist. She wasn't professionally trained as a lawyer, but she quickly brought on those skills that she needed to be able to really kind of lead her community and take on a pretty big case against a pretty big American company to fight for what she believed in. And I think that the passion and the tenacity, and I guess the fight, that is the piece about her that really kind of stands out. And for me, if I can be a leader who really is passionate about what I believe in, and that comes through, and I can go out and take on the skills, learn, be curious to get the outcome that I kind of set before me, then love to be like her. Erin Brockovich. If you've not watched the movie, Julia Roberts plays her. It's worth a watch.
Awesome. Yeah, and the passion side of things, I think you're right. I mean, if you have a leader who has that passion and that fight, that's contagious. That's something whereby you really want to be around that leader, and that sort of attracts people to go and work with that person for sure. So that's great, and it's a great example of her. Check out the film, listeners. I'm here with Jo Finer right now, and we're talking about Leadership is Changing. So, Jo, I used, or the name of the show is called Leadership is Changing. And when I say that term, what does that mean for you?
Flexibility. Changing means being flexible. And I guess, I've, watched a fair bit of change in my 30-year career in the primary sector. I was referring before to talking about empowering women in agribusiness. Certainly the role of women 30 years ago when I started in the manufacturing part of the food sector was somewhat challenging, and it was had to be fairly tough, and had to bear a little bit of attitudes and approaches that these days are just no longer acceptable. And it's great to see that has changed, but it's what it's meant is, for me, I've had to be flexible and move from that particular style that I had to employ at that time to what is now probably a very different style where, 30 years on, there's, a couple of generations have, coming through behind who want different things out of the workplace. I think we've learnt as managers, as leaders, and as employees that we need more balance in our life. And so learning how to manage that kind of, work life balance and adapting to that. And then, just being flexible, I think, also to the changing consumer needs, particularly around the, issues of sustainability, issues of health and safety. For us in the primary sector, things like, animal welfare, fresh water, carbon emissions, that they've all had a huge impact on the way that we lead and what's important. So being flexible to just listen and to understand where, what's moving around you and how you need to adapt to those changes.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's not just with your team, it's being flexible in all areas of business and in life. So it sounds like, even with your consumers, your customers, your stakeholders, people out there, but even home life. I mean, if you can be flexible around that space too, that's going to be really important. And I like what you say, that change means having more flexibility. So being flexible is the key word there for sure. So along those lines, then, how has your business or industry changed, and what does that mean for you?
Yeah, I guess I touched on this aspect of sustainability just before, and there's been a massive shift here in New Zealand, but globally as well, in the last 5, 10, 15 years towards sustainable farming, and the pressure from consumer and from society as a whole, and the known need to lower our carbon footprint, the known need to drive improvement in water quality in the primary sector, prioritising the welfare of our animals and putting better work conditions in place for on-farm staff in particular. And so that's required a huge amount of change in the leadership styles that I think the primary sector and agribusiness leaders have had to display. And in particular, I think there's been a big shift towards values-based leadership. People have had to be a lot more kind of authentic. They've had to really understand the causes that are important to our society, and then lead the change in a way that we can still have a productive sector, but in a way that prioritises the broader need of society. I mean, a good example, how do we generate kind of more value using the same resources, but with less waste? It's really the mandate that has been given to us, and that requires a different leadership style than was out there years ago. So that's something that's really specific to the sector that I'm in.
Yeah, yeah. And the authentic side of things around values-based leadership that you've talked about. So understanding what's really important to society, because I think a lot of leaders, they do listen, but then they don't listen. And so what has been one of your success factors that's helped you understand what the community needs or what your team needs? What have you done to help you help them, if I can put it that way, and as a leader? What have you done?
Yeah, like I said up front, that I really enjoy engaging with people, and I reference going up to the UN and going out and asking the views of others, and I guess that is what I take on, is as a leader, I need to be reflective of needs of consumers, needs of society, needs of employees, needs of government, and so going out and asking those questions and finding out what's important to people is probably the way that's really helped me kind of move more into that values-based leadership. And just really understand. I mean, iwi is a great example where I've, learnt over time that all iwi have a different view on a particular aspect or need, and the importance of going out and engaging and asking questions and listening and taking on board is really important, rather than making any assumptions at all. And I think as a result, I can have become kind of more authentic, because I can, be myself, listen, make my own, I guess, outcomes, decisions or judgment calls based on gathering a lot of information and views of people.
Yeah, so listeners, making sure you don't go out there and have assumptions on certain things. Go out and listen to what people are saying. Ask questions. Be curious, as Joe has used that word before, about being curious about things and understanding, but then also adapt to what they are saying and then being reflective on that for sure. So, Joe, there is a lot of things happening in the world today, and there's a lot of change. So if there was one thing you could change in business as a leader today, what would that one thing be?
I think that would be balance, Dennis. I think
balance.
that we would get more balance in the way that we manage our business life with our personal life. Look, maybe COVID-19 will help achieve that for us. I think, working from home for a lot of people over these last 3 or 4 months has really given people a chance to kind of stop and get off the mouse wheel, slow down a bit, realise the stress that was associated with commuting, with not having sufficient time for family, for squeezing exercise out because they would, be rushing from one place to another. And if we can learn to balance more, I think that, we as a society and as business leaders will just be so much better for it.
Yeah, because, as I said, the introduction of the show is helping people with their executive excellence and also personal well-being. And I think you're right. I mean, COVID-19 as a pandemic and going into lockdown in particular, has actually forced people to sort of take time out to go and exercise. So get outside, walk. And I don't know about you, but we were out walking twice a day, in the morning and the afternoon, out there walking, but also seeing the community out there walking and saying hi to each other. And that was pretty good to see as well. And then the other one too is about the balance, right? So, I mean, I know for myself, if I have to go into the city and that going in and back is 1.5 hours each way. So that's 3 hours a day. And so I'm doing things in 3 hours that I would have normally not been doing. Have you noticed that as well? Have you seen that happen for you and others as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that exercise piece, just having I think the time to eat well also, just to, just think about how we nourish our bodies, because I think that's, I come from a food technology background, so, nutrition is really important for me, but I think it's so important for everybody in the way that we can be at our best. And I think, taking that time out of the commute and the rush and balancing that exercise, that good nutrition and sleep, sleep is a wonderful thing, enables us to all be at our best. And when we're at our best, we shine, we can be the best leaders, we can be the most supportive of others, and, I guess really show that, patience and understanding.
Yeah, what you talked about before about taking the rush out, and that is key there. If we can take the rush out, slow things down a bit, that'd be great. And I think what you're saying about the food and the nutrition side, yeah, get that, and that's really important. But I think it's also actually taking the time to sit and eat, whether it be with the family or whether it be whoever you're with or yourself, whatever. But taking time out to eat in a way rather than and taking the rush out and getting rid of that's going to be really important rather than just the nutrition, because it has to be a combination
Correct.
of all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that today a lot of employees have certain expectations, but from your perspective, you talk about that over your 30 years and working, things like that. Have you seen employees' expectations change?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm also influenced in saying that by having three children in their early 20s who all, just recently reached the workforce or one still to get there. And what I see their expectations as millennials and Gen Z as they come through what they want, they increasingly want to make an impact. They increasingly want to do something that matters. They want to make a difference. They want to achieve, and they're impatient in doing that. And but that's exciting to me. That's not something that we should chastise them for. It's an opportunity that we have a generation there that they're so passionate about wanting to really get in, roll their sleeves up, as I said, make an impact, make a difference. So hey, we have to let them do that. So, there again, being that flexible, adaptive leader that understands what the individual needs and then empowering them to do that and listening to them, to their needs, and giving them the best opportunity to just, really make that difference and impact that they want to. Go for gold. Yeah. That's what I say. Go for gold.
Nice. Go for gold. Yeah. And embrace that. If that passion they've got, and, they can be impatient, but if you can embrace that passion and help them, that'd be great. If they don't see, or if they don't get that that feeling of being listened and having a leader that's going to help move forward, what do they tend to do? What are they looking for?
I think they just look for what's next. They just kind of just lose interest and say, if I can't make a difference here, I'm going to move on and do something that is, this employer is not so important to me. I'm not so committed to this one particular organisation that I need to stay. I'll go and find somewhere else. And if they're a great employee, you want to keep them. And if they're an average employee, you want to make them a great employee. So I think as leaders, it's our job to really be giving them that opportunity to be great and to really shine.
Yeah, I think they're looking for inspirational leaders, but they also want to be inspired themselves, and we want them to do that too. So it's not only just attracting that talent, but also it's retaining the talent, which is going to be really, really important for us going forward. And if we don't, they, as you say, they'll probably vote with their feet. They'll move forward and they'll go and find somewhere else where they can fit into that kind and get what they need to make that impact, because that's really important for them. Hey, Joe, what makes a leader successful today in this fast-paced, ever-changing world?
So I 100% believe that success comes through making others successful. So to be a successful leader, you've got to allow others to be successful. So empower them, whether that's employees, whether that's peers, or whether that's managing up and making your own CEO, board, or executive team successful. If you can make others successful, all those around you, then that success ultimately comes back to you as an individual.
Okay, cool. So, team, listeners, if you can go out and make others successful and help them become successful, then in turn you will be successful as an individual, as a leader, especially in this fast-paced, ever-changing world. And Joe, if I was to ask you to get out your crystal ball, here's a real interesting question for you. So get out that crystal ball and start thinking about the future, because a lot of leaders, we need to have that vision side of things. And so if you start thinking about leadership in the next 5 years, where do you see it going?
Look, I think values-based leadership will continue to grow in importance, and the need for us to base our decisions base our leadership style on really kind of grounded values is really important. And the other one is, I think we'll move increasingly towards a coaching style of leadership, where, as I've talked about a lot already, a leader is helping to support and develop people, to bring others through, to coach them, to empower them, to give people that opportunity. So values-based leadership, coaching style leadership. And then the third one is really just is passion, just showing that passion. Going back to the leader I admire, Erin Brockovich, it was passion that she really showed. So put those three things together is where I see it going in 5 years: values-based, coaching style, and passionate leadership.
Yeah, great. And, no one wants to work for a knuckle dragger, if I can call it that way, of another person who's not passionate, the shoulders are dropped and they just don't want to be there. No one wants to work for that person. They want to work for someone who's value-based, who's got a coaching style and has got lots of passion. And if you can find a leader like that, hang on to that leader, because that leader is going to really take you and that organisation forward a lot. Jo, hey, thank you for joining us on the show today. If our listeners are wanting to get hold of you, where should they go?
They'll find me on LinkedIn. Jo Finer, easy to find.
Easy to find. Awesome. Jo, hey, thank you very much for being on the show today. Real pleasure having you here with us and with the listeners. What we as leaders know to be true is that change is constant. Change is incredibly scary, especially with the unknown and unfamiliar territory. It is time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing. Hey, look out for the episodes as they are being released. Download them, have a listen, put a review and a rating, and feel free to share them with your network. If there's any feedback you'd like to give me on the show, or any questions you'd like me to ask my guests, or if you want to ask me a question for the Ask Dennis episode, feel free to send me an email, dennis@leadingchangepartners.com. Hey, listeners, thanks for tuning in today, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.